Hello everyone, this is Learn the Lingo. My name is Matthew, and welcome to Lesson 7 of Hebrew Basics, a series where we learn the essentials of Hebrew grammar. Today we are going to learn some words called demonstrative pronouns. These words, like other pronouns, are used to refer to something without using its name, and they are called demonstrative pronouns because they are specifically used to point out or demonstrate things. In English, we know these words as this, that, these, and those. Let's start with this. This has two forms in Hebrew, one masculine and one feminine. Ze is the masculine form of this, and zot is the feminine form. The masculine form ze is used to agree with masculine nouns, like lechem, bread. To say this is bread, first we say ze, the masculine form of this, since that is the form we must use when referring to a masculine noun. We don't need a word for is in Hebrew, and bread is lechem. So we just have ze lechem. This is bread. Ze lechem. And if we had a feminine noun in this kind of phrase, the Hebrew word for this would be the feminine zot. Let's take the feminine noun gvina, cheese, and say this is cheese in Hebrew. First we say zot, the feminine this to agree with gvina, a feminine noun. Again, no word for is, and then gvina, cheese. Zot gvina. This is cheese. Zot gvina. In these sentences, ze and zot are being used as pronouns because they are referring to something without using its name. However, ze and zot can also be used as adjectives, describing something. In English, the word this works the same way. It can be a pronoun, this is cheese, or an adjective, this cheese. So let's say this bread in Hebrew. Remember that in Hebrew, we put the adjective after the noun it describes. So first we would say the noun, lechem, bread, and then we would say the adjective this. This adjective must agree with the gender of the noun lechem, so it will be the masculine ze. Lechem ze, this bread. And that's a grammatically correct phrase. Just a noun, lechem, and this as an adjective, ze. Lechem ze, this bread. But usually we do something a little different. Instead of saying just this bread, Hebrew will more often say what we could literally translate as this bread. To say the in Hebrew, we attach a ha to the beginning of a noun. So we'll attach a ha to lechem to get ha lechem. And remember that in Hebrew, when an adjective is connected to a noun with ha, the adjective must also take a ha, meaning the. In this phrase, ze is an adjective, so we attach the he to both lechem and ze. Ha lechem ha ze. Literally, this bread. Ha lechem ha ze. Ha lechem ha ze. This bread. And this is the way we usually use this as an adjective in Hebrew, instead of just lechem ze, though both ha lechem ha ze and lechem ze are correct ways to say this bread. If we have a feminine noun like uga, cake, and we wanted to say this cake, we'd use zot, the feminine form of this. We can just say uga zot to mean this cake, but usually we'll want to attach a he to both words. Ha uga ha zot. Ha uga ha zot. This cake. In modern Hebrew, and sometimes in biblical Hebrew, ze and zot not only mean this, but also that. There is not so much distinction between this and that in Hebrew as there is in English. However, we do have Hebrew words for that, which are used especially in biblical Hebrew. In modern Hebrew, you may only want to use them to emphasize the far distance from that thing. It turns out we already know the masculine and feminine forms of that, because they are also the words for he and she, who and he. So if we wanted to say that bread, we would have the same structure as halechem hazeh, this bread, but we switch out the ze for who, the masculine form of that, halechem hahu. And to say that cake, we would take ha'uga hazot and switch out zot for the feminine form of that, he, ha'uga hahi, that cake. Again, in modern Hebrew, these distinctions between this and that are usually not made, and so to translate that cake into modern Hebrew, we'll probably just prefer to say ha'uga hazot. Because of this lack of distinction, if we want to translate ha'uga hazot back into English, we'll need to look at the context to decide whether we should say this cake or that cake. And now for the plural forms of this and that. these and those. Once again, in modern Hebrew, we usually just use one word that means these and those. Well, in biblical Hebrew, that word usually just means these and not those. This word is ele. Ele is used for both feminine and masculine plural nouns, unlike the singular where we have masculine ze and feminine zot. Let's say these are eggs. These is ele, and we don't need a word for are. And eggs is beitzim. And so the Hebrew translation is just ele beitzim. These are eggs. Ele beitzim. To say these cakes, using these as an adjective instead of a pronoun, we do the same thing as this cake, but just pluralize it. This cake was ha'uga hazot. Ha'uga's plural is ha'ugot, and instead of zot, we use the plural ele to get ha'ele. So these cakes is ha'ugot ha'ele. In biblical Hebrew, we usually have a distinction between these and those, and sometimes in modern Hebrew, we may as well. Like who and he and she in the singular can mean that. The words meaning those are the subject pronouns for they, masculine heim and feminine hein. So to say those cakes with a distinction for those, we wouldn't say ha'ugot ha'ele, but ha'ugot ha'hein, switching out ele for hein, the feminine form of those, to agree with the feminine plural ugot. Ha'ugot ha'hein, those cakes. Ha'ugot ha'hein. To say those sandwiches, we take sandwiches, krichim, a masculine plural noun, and the masculine form of those, heim. We attach a he to the noun krichim and its adjective heim to get ha'krichim ha'heim. Those sandwiches. Ha'krichim ha'heim. And again, in modern Hebrew, a distinction is not usually made between pointing out something near with these or far with those. So to say those sandwiches, we should generally translate those as ele instead of heim. So we'll have ha'krichim ha'ele, which can be translated back into English as either these sandwiches or those sandwiches. And that's how you say this, that, these, and those in Hebrew. As a bonus, in modern Hebrew, there are alternatives to the words zot and ele we can use. The equivalent of zot is zo, spelled with a vav, and the alternative to ele is elu. So this cake could either be said ha'uga hazot or ha'uga hazo, and these cakes could either be said ha'ugot ha'ele or ha'ugot ha'elu. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and share. And if you want to learn more Hebrew, please consider subscribing to my channel and checking out some of my other videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.